So Highland Growers Podcast, I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with...
I'm Chris from Hillhaven.
There were some questions to say about the new single, This Time Tomorrow, so congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to it so far?
Thanks. I'm pretty stoked on it so far. I mean, it's only been a couple of days, but comments seem overwhelmingly positive, and we've got the wonderful folks at Octane helping us with it as well. So far, so good. Fingers crossed.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of a shift from the previous singles, but I'm glad that people are still digging it. It rocks.
Oh yeah.
Thanks,
Song
man.
fucks.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, like you said, definitely a bit of a departure. It kind of felt like about halfway through the writing process of all this music that we put out this year, like it kind of became clear that it was like, we're going to need a palate cleanser, like not just a palate cleanser, but like something's going to need to be like a little bit hopeful. You know what I mean?
Just
like,
a little glimmer. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like light at the end of the tunnel. Everything's going to be okay. Happy ending kind of vibe, So I was like, all right, let's hit it.
Yeah, and I would argue there's no better time to release it than right now.
Yeah.
I think everyone's kind of hoping for a light at the end of the tunnel at this point.
For sure. Yeah. Goddamn. So is there any meaning behind the single title or cover
art? Cover art, I wish I could say was like more well thought out. It's not. It was done pretty quickly. But as far as the song goes, like I had the hook idea in my head for a little bit. Oddly enough, people are gonna laugh at this. It started, and it's nothing like it now, but it started as me doing my damnedest to try to rip off Taylor Swift's 22, because that hook just wouldn't leave my head.
Okay.
And it didn't work, but I wound up finding another hook anyway. But yeah, no, it was just like pretty much all of the material that we've put out this year has been just like basically me using a microphone as a therapy session, which is not the most original thing, I'm sure, but yeah, just basically me just being super angry about stuff or talking about stuff that happened in the few years prior to Hillhaven kind of starting to become a thing. And so this one was just kind of like, it's like, I think it's a good way to, and it was always sort of intended to kind of be like the closer of like whatever the first cycle was going to be. It was like the kind of like looking back at everything that had been bitched about prior, like from like a healthier perspective. You know what I mean? So I think the lyrics are pretty on the nose, you know what I mean? Like, but like, basically like everything's gonna be all right. Like this time tomorrow, everything's gonna be cool. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
Damn right.
So for the writing process, am I picking up that like you're the main songwriter, and then at what point does the rest of the band kind of come in? Yeah.
So the nature of this band is obviously like, because everyone's in different bands, like it's difficult to get everybody together. So for the most part, it became like I had written one song, which is that song Gaps, and that's kind of what started the whole thing with me and Maddie talking and then finding everybody else. And then at a certain point it kind of became clear that everyone's trying to fit around everyone's schedule. Like if we were going to try to put a record together or something like that and try to have us all in a room, that it was going to be next to impossible. So it basically just became me like locking myself in my hotel rooms and my basement or whatever production room I had access to, and just kind of putting as much as I could together and then getting feedback from the rest of the guys is basically the process.
Gotcha.
Okay. Wow. So do you prefer that, or are you trying to kind of mix everyone in eventually?
Yeah, honestly, it just depends. You know what I mean? Like I don't think any one of us has a particular preference. Like it's just a matter of like, if everyone's happy with the material that's coming out, then cool. Like obviously it would be great to get everybody in a room and like let the minds meld. Maddie and I have worked together. I've written a couple of songs with his band From Ashes to New, and Ricky and I have known each other for a long time and written songs for other clients and things like that. So like we all have that kind of foundation of like having worked together before. So I think that also is something that helps, is that like we all kind of trust each other. So if somebody like kind of puts forth an idea or has like a note about something, there's not really much arguing, you know what I mean? So that's good. But yeah, I mean, it'd be great to like actually, you know, fully collaborate on something at some point. It's just, you know, I think for everybody, like myself included, there was a lot of like we needed a proof of concept. You know what I mean? Because it when you I feel like everybody has some form of this at least once in their life where you like talk to your friends about like, wouldn't it be cool if we X, you know, like wouldn't it be cool if we started a podcast? Like how long did y'all talk about that before it happened? You know what I mean? Like and it's just one of those things where like it could very easily just be the thing that everyone's like, oh, that would have been cool, and it just never happens. And I think especially the other guys were probably like, you know, very wary of the fact that it could be that, you know. So I kind of felt a responsibility to sort of prove it to them that like, no, we can do something with this, you know what I mean? And I'm glad they all stuck around. I'm very grateful to all of them, because I think it's been going pretty well so far, all things considered.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, I think so too. So I want you to tell us your favorite lyric off this track and what it means to you.
I think probably the whole bridge section, like the, you know, intrusive voices will tell you otherwise, and then the, you know, responses, you'll never get over it, like that. It's sort of that that fight that you have with yourself, you know, where like I think when we're in sort of like the darkest like parts of our lives or our emotional states or whatever, there's something in your head that like almost doesn't want you to get better. You know what I mean? Like there's like that thing of like, no, we've just accepted that like it just sucks, you know? And like at a certain point, the fight, whatever fight you're fighting, it stops being between you and whatever like the external stressors are, and it just becomes like a personal one. Like you're kind of fighting with the two sides of yourself of like there's the part of you that wants to get through it, and the part of you that's like, dude, just give it up, like it's just going to be like this forever, just deal with it, you know what I mean? So I think that's probably like that would probably be the most meaningful part of the song to me. I mean, you know, obviously these lyrics are all very personal and stuff like that, but I feel like that's, you know, obviously I have a lot of friends in the music industry who struggle with similar things. So I think it's a fairly relatable kind of concept of arguing with yourself and fighting with yourself and kind of wondering why, you know, like why, like you should be the person that like wants you to be happy, but that's not always the case, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I want to call back to what you said earlier, how you know, the Taylor Swift 2022 is kind of like the spark for this song, the initial influence.
Sure.
So I'm curious like what you've been listening to recently, because I'm always curious like what people in the rock and metal space are listening to, because it's normally not always like you would expect it to be the heavy music that they're creating, but it's sometimes not. So I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I will say the Taylor Swift thing is actually very odd. I don't have anything against her music. I don't know a lot of it.
I mean, that song's a banger.
I have a 7-year-old. Yeah, I have a 7-year-old daughter, so she's obsessed with Taylor Swift. So that's you know, that's where and I was like, that hook's catchy, you know. But most recently, I'm late to the boat on this, but the Bill Murray record that came out this year is so fucking sick. The new Linkin Park record, I know that that's kind of like, that's like a point of tension depending on who we're talking
right
to.
Here with the two hosts of this.
Okay. I can see Glory's face.
I'm like sorry, I didn't mean to give it away like that.
No, it's fine. No, I've been stoked since day one.
Yeah.
So and I think the record's great. I totally understand you know, why, you know, there's resistance from certain people, and it's like kind of hard to digest, you know, without Chester. And I know that, you know, whatever like personal things about, you know, some of the new people or whatever may or may not exist. Like I know that there's been a lot of conversation with that kind of stuff, but like I'm just stoked that a band that I like is doing their best to like make music again. You know what I mean? And I think the songs that they're putting out are sick. I would love this record if it was a Linkin Park record or if it was named something completely different.
Yeah.
So I'm really digging that one. And I mean, honestly, like my usual, kind of my go-to stuff, honestly, is the kind of like heavy rock or metalcore stuff. Like I fucking love Polaris and Beartooth, obviously. Like no one's listening to a Hillhaven song and being like, has this guy ever heard of Beartooth? Like, but yeah, like I don't know. I love that shit. Like I love all the stuff that stations like Octane and stuff play. Like I didn't grow up loving that stuff. I grew up playing like technical death metal and being like all that stuff's for pussies, you know what I mean? But like now, I don't know. I'm all about it now. I like and I like the I think the reason a lot of like the death metal kids and stuff shit on music like this is because of, obviously it's like popular and it's relatively formulaic and whatever, but like there's like a business mindset around it too, and like that's what fascinates me about it. It's like it's not just about like, oh, do I like the song that I wrote? It's like there's like another piece to the puzzle that makes it more interesting now about like what's your target demographic and how do you market it to them and like all that kind of stuff. Like obviously music comes first, that's the most important. You got to make sure it's authentic and all that shit, but like I like the sort of extra challenge that comes with trying to break into like a more pop culture kind of space.
Gotcha. Okay, so you see the challenge of becoming almost an influencer on top of being a musician as a fun thing and not like actually like difficult. You
so
enjoy that.
When you use the word influencer, it makes me go, no, absolutely not. Because
content creator.
Learning how to. That was the one thing that I like, and I said this to the guys because like when we started launching the project, I was like, all right, like, because I don't really participate in social media all that much. Like I generally have like I just send stuff to people and I'm like, hey, can you post this today?
That's good.
But I was like, all right, like you guys have your finger on the pulse. Like, I know that content is a thing. So like, tell me what we need. And they were like, you're not going to like this. like you're the singer. It's got like, it's you. It's like, you need to be lip syncing shit all the time. And I'm like, like, I did not think this through. Yeah. So no, the influencer side of things, I have to admit, I'm not super crazy about, but I just recognize that it's like part of the game. So like there is a certain element of it that like you can make it fun, of like sort of doing a couple different styles of videos and then seeing which one, hits more than others and then trying to lean into that. But that doesn't always work. You know what I mean? Like I think when you watch like YouTube videos and stuff, which I've consumed more content now than I'm willing to admit, about like basically like how you trick the algorithm or whatever the hell, whatever clickbait they put on it, like that they make it sound so easy of like, like just find the one that gets more likes than the other ones and just lean into that. But like sometimes you do that again and then it's a total flop. Like so
exactly. There's no logic.
Right. Yeah. It's all a nightmare. But like particularly what I like is the more like, I guess like broader spectrum stuff of like like not thinking about, how do I put this? Not thinking about the audience from like a social media perspective, but like from like if we were playing for these people, like how do you like connect with them on that level? Like what kind, like the people listening on Octane, like what do they tend to gravitate towards? And like how do you sort of take notes from other bands that are doing it successfully without becoming a carbon copy, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because I think people can sniff that out too. Like some people dig it. Not everybody cares if a band is like inauthentic or whatever. Like they just think that the hook is cool and that's great. You know what I mean? But like I think everybody who makes music like on some level wants to like have their identity be like somewhat definable at least. Like they don't just want to be another version of somebody else. So I think like that's the sort of puzzle that I like, is like figuring out how to like establish our own identity as a band and as writers and stuff, but then also like be able to, as best as we can sort of like seamlessly just sort of drop ourselves into the middle of like what everyone's digging right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's completely fair.
That makes a ton of sense. So where was your headspace at while you were writing this track?
I mean, much like the lyrics suggest, like this was sort of like when I finally sat down to like, and I think the verses of the songs are where I like actually get into like the nitty gritty, like emotional stuff, like
Mhm.
in general, like with all of our stuff. Cause I think like when I sit down at first, it's trying to write the hook. And like, obviously, like I want the hook to mean something or whatever, but I'm mainly just like, okay, like it's got to be catchy. It's got to be like, it's got to be concise. Like I kind of have like bullet points for it. And then the verses is sort of where that's well every time is like I'm like, oh shit, I gotta write the rest of it now. But like that's where it's, I guess, sort of the fun begins, of like trying to figure out exactly like what the quote unquote story is gonna be.
Mhm.
And so this one was like, I had the, this time tomorrow I'll be on my way. That was the sort of like first part of the hook that I had. And so it was like, okay, so obviously it's gotta be like a hopeful thing, like future oriented, like I said, light at the end of the tunnel kind of vibe. And so at that point, it was like, okay, like I have to figure out, like, am I gonna talk about the negative stuff, or is it just gonna be like more like uplifting, like is it gonna be sort of like a contrast of, this bad thing happened or this thing pissed me off, but it's okay because this time tomorrow, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but it wound up being like a, sort of a, as cliche as this sounds, just sort of like a self-love seminar. You know what I mean? Of like, instead
Yeah.
of instead of looking at um it from like that first example of like, okay, let's talk about the negatives, but then talk about why it's going to be okay. It's like, no, like, there's been a kind of a long healing process from all of this stuff that I've been bitching about, so
Mhm.
far. And so I think now it's time to sort of look at it from a healthier perspective instead of complaining about it or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so it's like, focusing on the, you know, picking up the pieces, like, kind of getting yourself back up and like being ready to being ready and open to like actually letting things get better, you know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this one should be super, super quick off the top of your head. I want you to describe this track for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Happy, hopeful, um, catchy.
See? Off
Those
the
are
dome.
good.
You got that shit.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
No hesitation. Mhm.
I
Um,
doubted every single choice, but I'm glad you liked it.
Exactly. No, stamp of approval.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good.
So
yeah.
what is your favorite memory that you made while creating this single?
Well, okay, so it's not a good memory, but it's a story. Wait, you mean this single?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I thought you were just talking about the songs in general. Okay, because the story I was going to tell was from Temple and Tomb.
I mean, you could tell that one
Um,
too if it's more exciting.
yeah, I'm gonna tell that one because there's no
Okay.
stories with this new one.
Okay.
So Temple and Tomb was like total, obviously the polar opposite of this track, right? And so it was like very isolated, very self-deprecating, very negative. And so as you can imagine, the setting around it was very similar. I was locked in hotel rooms. I did all the vocals in one day in the back lounge of a tour bus, on a day off when everybody else was out having fun. Like I just locked myself in there and
Mhm.
got it done. And I didn't realize that I had been there for 8 hours and hadn't eaten anything. And
Oh shit.
and afterwards, I got a text from my guitar tech of like, hey, we're at this bar up the street, come hang. And so I was like, all right, like I've been locked in all day, like I'll try to be social. And I walked over to this bar, and they were here's like one thing that people will learn about me, like I don't drink a lot, but like when I do, it's like I like drinks that would have gotten me called homophobic slurs in high school,
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah, yeah,
10 and a
yeah.
half inches tall, brightly colored, fucking
Mhm.
umbrellas in them, like
Yeah.
Fruity
frozen.
shit.
It's like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
The
that's
good
my,
shit.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's,
No
I didn't have
shame.
to
Yeah.
I didn't have to acquire a taste for my fucking daiquiri. You can make fun of me all you want.
You're goddamn right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I was there, and that's all the bar served. It was like a tiki bar kind of thing. And so I was like, hit me, hit me, hit me. And I was putting them back, and
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about, again, the fact that I hadn't eaten anything. And right in the middle of it, I thought, like, I just got up and left the bar. I was like, guys, I gotta go, because I thought I was having a heart attack. Like, my
No.
whole dude, my whole chest tightened up, my neck got stiff, I started sweating, and it was basically just like, yo, like either like I'm gonna try to walk back to the hotel, and if it's not better, like if it's not starting to improve by the time I get there, I need to call an ambulance because like I'm pretty sure these are all the symptoms of the heart attack. Luckily, it was subsiding by the time I got back, so I think it was just like a lot of alcohol and no food, and
Yeah.
all of it was very, very cold, and so like my body was just like, what the fuck?
What's going on?
But yeah, so like I may or may not have had some sort of minor cardiac event after writing that song.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So yeah, I mean, so and I think that also kind of helped into the transition of this one is like, so there was sort of more than one like, all right, it's time to get my shit together kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Going into this next one. The last one may have almost killed me. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, goddamn.
I'm so glad that you just own the fruity drinks because I also do and get made fun of every time I go out with coworkers.
Dude, all of your dude friends who are like they just they get their fucking single malt bourbon or whatever the fuck. Just oh my god, just stop it. Stop it.
It makes me gag just smelling it.
Stop pretending that you like the taste of a barrel, dude. Like you're doing it to be cool.
Be honest.
And yeah, it's totally fine. Like it's totally fine. And if you like it now because you spent years and years and years hating it until finally you developed a taste for it, okay, whatever. Like you committed to the bit, good for you.
Yeah, you
but
won.
Like, yeah, dude, yeah, straight up. Like, when everybody turned 21, going into college, whatever, and like people are like, oh yeah, I like bourbon. Fuck you. No, you don't.
Fuck you don't.
Like, it's awful. It's awful.
You want a fucking Shirley Temple, be honest.
Exactly.
Hell yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So you guys have dropped a handful of tracks so far, so I just have to ask the question that everyone is thinking. What is next for Hillhaven? Album, EP, collection of songs? What are you guys cooking up over there?
So, I mean, I am working on new material right now that we're all pretty stoked on. The initial plan was to do a record, and that's still a conversation that's being had. And obviously, like we've released enough songs now that like we're on our way there for sure. And we do have some more songs, in the original batch, that these were all made in that, like we could kind of do the falling in reverse thing of putting it. I know you guys were like, please don't do that. I also think that when it's a new project, a lot of it is just kind of throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so, there are songs that have clearly done a lot better than others. There have also been sort of algorithmic components where like I was just figuring out the Spotify shit, and so like I didn't do things the right way, and so they didn't get pushed the same way. So like I don't exactly know how to measure like which ones people actually like and don't like. So like if we did a record, like it could be all of the songs that have come out. It could be some of them, just kind of like the favorites. It could be just waiting until we have a whole other batch of songs. There are other conversations that we're having, like, potential labels and booking agents and things like that. So like, it's all just kind of in flux right now. I definitely would like, and I think everyone would like to see there be like a complete body of work put out. And there was an album title that like I had already kind of decided on with this batch of work. And like, now I'm at the point of like, well, like whenever like the first full length comes out, whether it's these songs or not, do I want it to have that album title now if it's different stuff or whatever, you know what I mean? So like, I think, because also when you drop an album, like you want to have, like merch bundles and like a shit ton of promotion going on. And like, we're only ramping up our PR right now, like going into the end of the year, because that's another thing when you're starting a new band, like you're trying to keep costs as low as possible, because like the whole thing can fall apart at any moment and you don't want to be out, tens of thousands of dollars on stuff. So, the videos were all almost entirely DIY, and I did all the production myself and whatever. So like, it's all just been like keeping costs as low as possible. So now that we have some momentum, it's like, okay, like it makes some sense to start putting some money into this, but it's a little too late to just be like, oh, and now there's a record and like, here's a t-shirt or something, you know what I mean? So like, I don't think any of us have any interest in not doing this, the right way. So I think it's just a matter of like having having a serious conversation about it and kind of ironing out exactly what the plan is going to be. So unfortunately, I don't have the clearest answer right now, but like there is new material in the works. Like things will continue to come out. We're talking about like, you know, tour and show opportunities next year, like trying to figure all that kind of shit out. But it's just a lot of it's up in the air right now.
Got you.
That's completely
well,
fair.
That's very
Go with the
exciting.
flow.
Hell yeah. Well, that is all the questions we have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Just please go listen to. I mean, I should just say listen to This Time Tomorrow because that's a new one that we're pushing. But if you don't like that one, there's 6 others. Go find one that you like and fucking jam that one because anything helps.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
all right.
right.
Well, thank you, now. It's been Chris from Hillhaven, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.